I have heard it said by my people in Hall, councillors who live in the upland country, that they have seen 2 such creatures prowling the moors, huge marauders from some other world. One of these things, as far as anyone ever can discern, looks like a woman. The other, warped, in the shape of a man, moves beyond the pale, bigger than any man, an unnatural birth, called Grendel by country people in former days. They are fatherless creatures, and their whole ancestry is hidden in a past of demons and ghosts. They dwell apart among wolves on the hills, on windswept crags and treacherous caches, where cold streams pour down the mountain and disappear under mist and moorland. A few miles from here, a frost-stiffened wood waits and keeps watch above a mere. The overhanging bank is a maze of tree roots mirrored in its surface. At night there, something uncanny happens. The water burns, and the mere bottom has never been sounded by the sons of men. On its bank, the heather stepper halts. The hart in flight from pursuing hounds will turn to face them with firm-set horns and die in the wood rather than dive beneath its surface. That is no good place. When wind blows up and stormy weather makes clouds scud and the skies weep, out of its depths a dirty surge is pitched toward the heavens. Now help depends again on you and on you alone. The gap of danger where the demon waits is still unknown to you. Seek it if you dare. I will compensate you for settling the feud, as I did the last time, with lavish wealth, coffers of coiled gold, if you come back. Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, spoke. Wise sir, do not grieve. It is always better to avenge dear ones than to indulge in mourning. For every one of us living in this world means waiting for our end. Let whoever can win glory before death. When a warrior is gone, that will be his best and only bulwark. So arise, my lord, and let us immediately set forth on the trail of this troll dam. I guarantee you she will not get away. Not to dens underground, nor upland groves, nor the ocean floor. She'll have nowhere to flee to. Endure your troubles today, bear up, and be the man I expect you to be. With that, the old lord sprang to his feet and praised God for Beowulf's pledge. Then a bit and halter were brought for his horse, with the plaited mane. The wise king mounted the royal saddle, and rode out in style with a force of shield-bearers. The forest paths were marked all over with the monster's tracks. Her trail on the ground wherever she had gone across the dark moors, dragging away the body of that thane, Hrothgar's best counsellor and overseer of the country. So the noble prince proceeded undismayed, up fells and screes along narrow footpaths, and ways where they were forced into single file, ledges on cliffs above layers of water monsters. He went in front with a few men, good judges of the lie of the land, and suddenly discovered the dismal wood. Mountain trees growing out at an angle above grey stones, the bloodshot water surged underneath. It was a sore blow to all of the Danes, friends of the Shieldings. A hurt to each and every one of that noble company when they came upon Aesir's head at the foot of the cliff. Everybody gazed as the hot gore kept wallowing up, and an urgent war horn repeated its notes. The whole party sat down to watch. The water was infested with all kinds of reptiles. There were writhing sea dragons and monsters slouching on slopes by the cliff, serpents and wild things such as those that often surface at dawn to roam the sail road and doom the voyage. Down they plunged, lashing in anger at the loud call of the battle bugle. An arrow from the bow of the Geat chief got one of them as he surged to the surface. The seasoned shaft stuck deep in his flank, and his freedom in the water got less and less. It was his last swim. He was swiftly overwhelmed in the shallows, prodded by barbed boar spears, cornered, beaten, pulled up on the bank. A strange lake birth, a loathsome catch. Men gazed at it in awe. Beowulf got ready, donned his war gear indifferent to death. His mighty hand-forged fine-webbed mail would soon meet with the menace under water. It would keep the bone cage of his body safe. No enemy's clasp could crush him in it. No vicious arm-lock choke his life out. To guard his head, he had a glittering helmet that was due to be muddied on the mere bottom and blurred in the upswirl. It was of beaten gold, princely headgear, hooped and hasped by a weaponsmith who had worked wonders in days gone by and adorned it with boar shapes. Since then it had resisted every sword. And another item lent by Unferth, at that moment of need, was of no small importance. The Brehon handed him a hilted weapon, a rare and ancient sword named Hrunting. The iron blade, with its ill-boding patterns, had been tempered in blood. It had never failed the hand of anyone who hefted it in battle, anyone who had fought and faced the worst in the gap of danger. This was not the first time it had been called to perform heroic feats. When he lent that blade to the better swordsman, Unferth, the strong-built son of Echlaf, could hardly have remembered the ranting speech he had made in his cups. He was not man enough to face the turmoil of a fight under water and the risk of his life. So there he lost fame and repute. It was different for the other, rigged out in his gear, ready to do battle. Beowulf, son of Echlaf, spoke. Wisest of kings, now that I have come to the point of action, I ask you to recall what we said earlier, that you, son of Halfdane and gold friend to retainers, that you, if I should fall and suffer death while serving your cause, would act like a father to me afterwards. If this combat kills me, take care of my young company, my comrades in arms. And be sure also, my beloved Hrothgar, to send Hygelac the treasures I received. Let the Lord of the Geats gaze on that gold. Let Hrethel's son take note of it and see that I found a ring-giver of rare magnificence and enjoyed the good of his generosity. And Unferth is to have what I inherited. To that far-famed man I bequeath my own sharp-honed, wave-sheened wonder blade. With Hrunting I shall gain glory or die. After these words, the prince of the Weather Geats was impatient to be away, and plunged suddenly, without more ado, he dived into the heaving depths of the lake. It was the best part of a day before he could see the solid bottom. Quickly, the one who haunted those waters, who had scavenged and gone her gluttonous moods for 100 seasons, sensed a human observing her outlandish lair from above. So she lunged and clutched and managed to catch him in her brutal grip. But his body, for all that, remained unscathed. The mesh of the chainmail saved him on the outside. Her savage talons failed to rip the web of his war shirt. Then, once she touched bottom, that wolfish swimmer carried the ring-mailed prince to her court, so that for all his courage, he could never use the weapons he carried, and a bewildering horde came at him from the depths, droves of sea beasts who attacked with tusks and tore at his chainmail in a ghastly onslaught. The gallant man could see he had entered some hellish turnhole, and yet the water did not work against him, because the whole roofing held off the force of the current. Then he saw firelight, a gleam and flare-up, a glimmer of brightness. The hero observed that swamp thing from hell, the Tarn hag in all her terrible strength, then heaved his war sword and swung his arm. The decorated blade came down ringing and singing on her head. But he soon found his battle torch extinguished. The shining blade refused to bite. It spared her and failed the man in his need. It had gone through many hand-to-hand fights, had hewn the armor and helmets of the doomed, but here at last, the fabulous powers of that heirloom failed. Hygelac's kinsman kept thinking about his name and fame. He never lost heart. Then, in a fury, he flung his sword away. The keen inlaid worm-loop patterned steel was hurled to the ground. He would have to rely on the might of his arms. So must a man do who intends to gain enduring glory in a combat. Life doesn't cost him a thought. Then the Prince of War Geats, warming to this fight with Grendel's mother, gripped her shoulder and laid about him in a battle frenzy. He pitched his killer opponent to the floor, but she rose quickly and retaliated, grappled him tightly in her grim embrace. The sure-footed fighter fell daunted. The strongest of warriors stumbled and fell. So she pounced upon him and pulled out a broad-whetted knife. Now she would avenge her only child. But the mesh of chainmail on Beowulf's shoulder shielded his life, turned the edge and tip of the blade. The son of Echlaf would have surely perished, and the Geats lost their warrior under the wide earth, had the strong links and locks of his war gear not helped to save him. Holy God decided the victory. It was easy for the Lord, the ruler of heaven, to redress the balance once Beowulf got back up on his feet. Then he saw a blade that boded well, a sword in her armory, an ancient heirloom from the days of the giants, an ideal weapon, one that any warrior would envy, but so huge and heavy of itself, only Beowulf could wield it in a battle. So the shielding's hero, hard-pressed and enraged, took a firm hold of the hilt and swung the blade in an arc, a resolute blow that bit deep into her neck bone and severed it entirely, toppling the doomed house of her flesh. She fell to the floor. The sword dripped blood. The swordsman was elated. A light appeared and the place brightened, the way the sky does when heaven's candle is shining clearly. He inspected the vault. With sword held high, its hilt raised, to guard and threaten, Hygelac Thane scouted by the wall in Grendel's wake. Now the weapon was to prove its worth. The warrior determined to take revenge for every gross act Grendel had committed. And not only for that one occasion when he'd come to slaughter the sleeping troops, 15 of Hrothgar's house guards, surprised on their benches and ruthlessly devoured, and as many again carried away a brutal plunder. Beowulf in his fury now settled that score. He saw the monster in his resting place, war-weary and wrecked, a lifeless corpse, a casualty of the battle in Heorot. The body gaped at the stroke dealt to it after death. Beowulf cut the corpse's head off. Immediately, the councillors keeping a lookout with Hrothgar watched the lake water, saw a heave up and surge of waves, and blood in the backwash. They bowed grey heads, spoke in their sage, experienced way about the good warrior, how they never again expected to see that prince returning in triumph to their king. It was clear to many that the wolf of the deep had destroyed him forever. The 9th hour of the day arrived. The brave shieldings abandoned the cliff top, and the king went home, but sick at heart, staring at the mere. The strangers held on. They wished without hope to behold their lord, Beowulf himself. Meanwhile, the sword began to wilt into gory icicles, to slather and thaw. It was a wonderful thing the way it all melted as ice melts, when the Father eases the fetters off the frost and unravels the water ropes. He who wields power over time and tide, he is the true Lord.
Huge thank you, as always, to all of my Patreon supporters, particularly Andre D., Break System BSE, Michael Fattori, Zachary Snowden-Smith, and Xana Zira. Thank you for watching, and thanks for being you.